Okay, good evening and welcome to a meeting of the Pioneer Valley Regional School District School Committee. Today is Thursday, September 14th, 2023. This meeting is taking place in the Pioneer Valley Regional School Library and via Google Meet. I'll call the meeting to order. It's 6:07 and we'll do a roll call attendance. Sylvia, you want to start us?
Sylvia Cummings here.
Melissa Gary, present.
Michelle Geruso, present.
Erin O'Neill here.
Gretchen Calton, present. And Steve?
Stephen Martin, present.
Thanks. And Raina Dastu, present. So, do we have any citizens' comments? I don't see any. You do? Okay, go ahead.
I just have a quick request. If the policy subcommittee might consider whether students who are choicing in that have family members who live in town and are on a bus route, if those choice students might be picked up at the family member's house, because I don't know about the other schools, but the two elementary schools, there is a very lengthy loop of people dropping and picking up, and it would probably save nuisance factor, and it probably wouldn't cost the district any money to pick them up at a family's member's home.
Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Great. So we have approval of minutes next on the agenda. So our August 17th and August 29th.
Which one? Where's the date? I'll move the August 17th meeting minutes as printed.
I'll second that.
Great. Do we have any corrections or discussion? Yeah. All right. Pretty fancy. Go ahead, Sylvia.
Sylvia Cummings, yes.
Melissa Gary, yes.
Michelle Geruso, yes.
Erin O'Neill, yes.
Gretchen Calton, yes. Steve?
Stephen Martin, yes.
Thanks. And Raina Dastu, yes. So that does pass unanimously. August 29th.
I'll move the August 29th meeting minutes as printed.
Second.
I have a correction.
Go ahead.
Under 3, it's Kate Mesmer, I believe, not Meisner.
How's that spelled?
Messmer.
Yes.
Okay, I was looking for approval. You're welcome.
Yep.
Yeah, as
Yes,
amended.
as amended.
As amended.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion, corrections? Go ahead, Sylvia.
Sylvia Cummings, yes.
Melissa Gary, yes.
Michelle Geruso, yes.
Erin O'Neill, yes.
Gretchen Calton, yes.
Stephen Martin, yes.
And Raina Dastu, yes. So those are approved unanimously. Thank you. So moving on to the reports. For the chair's report, the self-assessment forms, I haven't received any yet. So for the district self-assessment, the school committee portion, those were sent out, I think, via email from the superintendent a few weeks ago, or after our last meeting. So it's just a one-page. If we could have as many people contribute as possible, that'd be great. So we can, I'll try to find that and send that out again. I'll have to let you know in the email. Yes, I'm gonna. So we'll Michelle and I will confer about that after the meeting. So just as a point of information, the December 7th meeting, we made a decision to cancel that because of a scheduling conflict with the superintendent. She has another commitment that night, so that will leave us with just one meeting in December on December 14th. So we'll have one meeting in November and one meeting in December, so we'll have to make those very productive. So good. And I also just want to say, you probably noticed the superintendent is not present tonight due to illness. But I also just wanted to acknowledge that I wanted the school committee and the community to know that we have a very dedicated superintendent. She's been dealing with a health crisis this week, and at a time when it would have been perfectly acceptable to be radio silent, she's done a fabulous job of keeping me updated and helping to make sure that we were ready for tonight's meeting, and supporting the admin team with whatever she had to do from whatever she could do remotely. So, and I also just want to send a little, say a few words of appreciation for our wonderful admin team. You guys are great. You've done a great job holding down the fort, and I know the superintendent has been really appreciative of all the work that you've done this week. So, moving on to our Director of Finance report.
And I spoke with Patricia earlier, and she wanted to mention about, I mean, obviously there's a lot of great stuff going on, but specifically how happy she is with the progress of the wood shop and in the start of the year and the programming that's happening there. And I personally was in a meeting discussing, and this is going to be super cute, right? That they are making small picnic tables for the younger students down in the elementary schools. So the students here in the middle high school are going to be making miniature picnic tables for miniature people. This is going to be amazing, right?
That's wonderful.
And our students are making them. I mean, this is super cool, but also potentially we may be in violation of certain laws regarding related to cuteness. So we will want to watch out. I mean, this is going to be super cool. So they're doing great stuff. I mean, that's just one thing, but when I heard about this, when I was in the meeting today, I was like, oh, this is going to be so great. So good stuff is already happening. And I think that I was talking to our woodshop teacher, Josh Freund, and he said that these 8 picnic tables might be done by October, the middle of October.
Wow.
I was like, no supply chain problems when your students are making the picnic tables. Good stuff.
That's awesome. That's great.
It's wonderful. So on to less cute stuff, the finance report. Yeah, this is obviously there's a memo. This is the strange time of year when realistically most of my work is still related to the prior year that ended, FY23, getting everything completed in order to file our excess and deficiency report and the end of the year report. So I'm working on those filings, but at the same time, the new year has started, and we're keeping an eye on that. We're still in the process also of allocating funds to the different grants and rural aid, et cetera. So there are areas on the expenditure report where there are negative balances, but a lot of that's temporary as we move stuff from the general fund onto the different funding sources. But I wanted to make mention of all those in the report. In terms of overall macro picture, from what I can see at this point, I would project that we will spend less than budgeted and bring in more revenue. So those are positive things. So any questions about the expenditure or revenue report?
No,
Before I continue?
just one. Could you give us a little bit more background on why the budgets were quite a bit off for IAs at the elementary schools?
Right. So a lot of the expense related to the instructional assistants will be going to the ESSER 3 fund. So although there's a negative balance, that's going to ultimately be covered by a grant. And then, for example, at NES, there's an additional IA that is essentially funded by Warwick, as we were looking at 2 students being able to attend NES. We looked at ways to staff the building so that, and by having an additional IA, we could have an additional section of 6th grade to make it possible for those students to return. So that's really I think the majority of the story of differences in budgeting versus what actually happened.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. And then for the lunch report, there's only been 1 day of reimbursable meals through the August report, so nothing too exciting. Obviously, food's been purchased, but there haven't been many sales, so the food service program starts out running at a deficit. And as long as there are free-for-all meals, food service programs are going to do pretty well. So let's hope that keeps happening because it's good for the financial stability of districts. Any questions there? And no budget transfers, so that is the extent of the report.
Excellent. Thank you. Subcommittee reports. I assume policy has met. or
Policy
has
hasn't
not
met, but MASC just released an email today about some major policy updates to the manual that we'll be reviewing, but we still have about 4 pages of those updates that we're working through.
Okay. All right. Teaching and learning has not met, I believe.
Met, but it was executive session.
Okay, yeah. District agreement has not met, yeah, and the collective bargaining and personnel. Oh, that was an executive session. We'll be discussing.
Oh, sorry. I missed.
Sorry, yeah, teaching and learning has not met.
No,
but,
they have not. I misspoke.
Collective
Forgive me.
bargaining and personnel
Yeah,
has.
sorry.
Great. And budget has not met, but
Oh, we will be shortly, huh, Jordan?
we're thinking about when we'll start that process. So, good. All right. So on to business. So we are having a presentation from Canon Design tonight on the facilities master plan. So an introduction to the process. And so I guess at this point, do you want to say anything, Jordan?
Well, yeah, I just want to say, obviously, we're really excited for the partnership with Can Design and having a lot of conversations with the broader school community about, where we hope to go in terms of our facilities, but also, the educational environment overall. This is going to be a very in-depth process with tons of opportunity for community involvement. Speaking of which, quick advertisement, next Monday, September 18th, is the first community forum. So we want as many stakeholders to be involved as possible because it'll be a better process the more involvement we have. So yeah, we're really excited, and this is the opportunity for Canon Design and Paul and his team to introduce themselves and talk more about what a facilities master plan is and what it looks like from their many experiences. So, without further ado, over to Paul.
Good evening. Thank you, Jordan. Just quick tech check here. I want to make sure you can hear me, and I endeavored to share my screen. I want to make sure it's visible from your perspective.
Yes, we can hear you.
Fantastic. Hi, folks. My name is Paul Mills with Canon Design. It's a real distinct privilege and pleasure to work with Patricia, Jordan, Gretchen, and we traditionally want to address the school committee and just share what we're doing. And we take that opportunity also to explain publicly so that all stakeholders have the opportunity to understand the purpose, the potential outcomes and process that we're undertaking and the timeline for doing it. Also to, as Jordan alluded to, this is a transparent and open process in which any stakeholder from across your district has the opportunity to participate with multiple occasions. So what is the facility master plan? At the end of the day, what we'll produce is a guide. It's a roadmap for facility use decisions and capital investments decisions that you as the school committee get to make with your capital resources and the direction you want to take your organization over the next 5 to 10 years. As I mentioned, it's transparent and it's data informed. It's also informed by students and community that are actively engaged in the process. And very importantly, and I'll allow Mary to weigh in as well, who has an unblemished track record of grant applications to the Massachusetts School Building Authority for their core and accelerated repair grant programs, which can be significant in terms of the resources that can be brought to the district. Mary, you want to weigh in?
Sure. Thank you, Paul. And it is a great pleasure for me to be working with the Canon team on this project and to be supporting Pioneer Valley. As Paul mentioned, my most recent district that I worked in was Salem Public Schools, and we retain the services of Canon Design for a facility master plan for a number of reasons. We share a lot of similar aspects with Pioneer Valley in that we had declining enrollment and deferred maintenance, some operational challenges and budget constraints. And we had a high school and a middle school that was at about 60% of capacity. And we had a high school that was in serious need of renovation and reconstruction. We had submitted, or the district had submitted, a number of statement of interests to the Massachusetts School Building Authority. That's the statement of interest is the grant application that you file with MSBA on an annual basis. They had filed several over the past decade or so, all of them unsuccessful. And what we believed was that if we were able to do a comprehensive facility master plan where we could identify not just the solution for one building, but a holistic solution to address all of our building, both the facility needs in terms of the condition of the facilities, but also being open to thinking about grade reconfiguration and consolidation of facilities. We believed that if we had a solid plan that we could present to MSBA and tell the story of why we felt like our high school was in serious need of a core project and the funding that comes along with it. And if you're not aware, the Mass School Building Authority is a major grant funding agency providing anywhere from 30 to 50% reimbursement for the cost of either its core program or accelerated repair program. And at the end of our process, at the end of our work together, we had an amazing facility master plan that we were able to use to, as I said, tell the story in our grant application to MSBA. And I'm pleased to report that as a result, Salem Public Schools was invited into the core program for Salem High School after 10 or 11 attempts. I think the game changer was the facility master plan and the work that went into developing a holistic solution for Salem Public Schools.
So our role in this process is to study your buildings and look at your enrollment data and projections and to facilitate an open process. At the conclusion of our work, we're going to provide you an unbiased, impartial series of recommendations for capital improvements as well as facility use. And then from there, you as the school committee get to take those recommendations and make decisions informed by that. So what does it involve? It creates a roadmap of actions to take. It also looks at capital budgets and where to invest your town's capital dollars, as well as what you as a district derive, and laying out a schedule of action. But underpinning those critical aspects are conversation and educational visioning sessions that we've already begun. A study of the condition of the buildings and how adequately designed and built they are to suit not the day when they were originally constructed, but rather where instruction and learning is happening in the future. We're studying the enrollment, studying the capacity, and how that might inform some of the decisions, as well as very critically engaging with your diverse communities and soliciting input from them. So I'm channeling Dr. Kinsella's perspectives on, and very optimistic view on this, is that, yeah, there are challenges that the district faces. However, we're confronting these with optimism. That's what this plan is all about. And looking at what we have in terms of aging facilities, declining enrollment, and what comes hand in hand with that, reduced operational budgets, and the difficulties in retaining and attracting qualified, amazing staff that you do have is indeed a challenge. These graphs here, and we'll get into more data as we get further into the process, but this kind of benchmarks Pioneer Valley's declining enrollment at the regional school, more or less flat at the elementary, but then benchmarking against your neighboring districts as well as the regional, the Voc Tech school and charters and non-public schools in your area, which underpins some of the outcomes that might happen. So as far as outcomes, The perspective we like to bring, and it was met with enthusiasm from your leadership of the district, is looking at change as not something to just say no to. Outright, it's easy to say no because this, no because that. But rather, I'm borrowing from one of my former clients after Hurricane Katrina down in New Orleans, that the answer doesn't need to be no all the time, that perhaps the answer can be found and creative solutions can be found by looking at things from a yes, if perspective, to look at ways around barriers and to find design thinking solutions to problems. So we had a workshop working with leadership from the district as well as community stakeholders to examine all the types of outcomes that a facility master plan can imply. The obvious ones toward the beginning of facility outcomes are obviously things that are under consideration to repair and expand facilities, maybe even consider replacing some, repurposing some facilities on the table, as well as maybe even divesting of facilities. Program outcomes, we're not just informing it by brick and mortar, but rather considering the educational programs and the flesh and blood that these buildings serve, and looking at educational programs, how these can be expanded upon and built upon. And also with the correct amount of responsibility and empathy to it, to also explore different ways of operating, like grade reconfiguration, which grades go to which schools, or even maybe reducing the number of schools to a different number, depending on the strategies that make the most sense in terms of your educational mission, the community priorities, as well as the finances surrounding how you operate as a district. And then even an examination of policies. So these are the sorts of outcomes that if you're thinking that we're just going to provide a list of what's broken and when to fix it, we are going to do that. However, we're taking this much further and leaning forward into what the next chapter in the history of the district of Pioneer Valley will have. So as far as process, it's really foundational in nature. We begin this process without even naming names of schools and focusing on what's right for all students. On top of the guiding principles, we overlay that with data and really have a firm understanding of what the facts are surrounding your buildings, surrounding your enrollment, and the programs that you offer. And from that, we create options. The idea is that stakeholders really want to have a say in designing solutions. And even if the very best solution is put forward without someone's involvement, they are just that likely to not support it or not as fully support it. And on top of that is where you come in. That's where decisions get made. And finally, the pinnacle of this pyramid here is taking action in terms of policy, your operations and finance, the MSBA grant application, the SOI process that Mary is talking about, as well as delivering on capital projects. Sorry, I should have been clicking as we went through there. So our timeline follows that logic of how we're sequentially and foundationally building it. But you can see all the various activities on the left-hand side with the timeline these are taking place. We're in the third circle right now, presenting to you this process. As you can see, we have you as the school committee being absolutely at the beginning and at the very end as far as our recommendations and taking action from that. We also have assembled a district planning committee, which is a composite representation of your district, and it starts with students. We had one participating in our first workshop. We know we're expanding on that for further sessions of the district planning committee. We have representatives from all towns that are covered by your district, as well as community members and leadership and staff from all the schools. There are open community forums, which starts next Monday. On the 18th, we have community forum number 1, in which we will have some interactive activities for community members to partake in, to learn a little bit about where this is going and provide us valuable input on the sorts of decision criteria and core values and principles need to be applied into developing options. We'll have a second one that happens on the 2nd of November. And that's when we'll be presenting draft options for the community to weigh in on. And a second survey will be administered at that time. We did a workshop on October 9th, working with the district planning committee. Mary, do you want to walk us through the next couple slides here?
Yes, we had some really great representation from across the district, including we were really happy to have a student, parents, community members, district and school leadership, and even some folks from some of your towns as well. And there were several activities that we engaged in, and I know that Paul has some slides that show some of those activities. They're listed here. They were really powerful ways to engage the folks around the table in small groups to really get an understanding of exactly, what do we hope to gain? What do we want our schools of tomorrow to look like? What's important to the district as we move forward with this planning process? And we had a really great exercise that was actually facilitated by your superintendent in terms of a great protocol looking at the future and then thinking back in time and how we actually got to that future vision that we were able to articulate and create, or that the team was able to articulate and create. So really, really powerful day. You can see how much interaction we had, how much engagement we had during the day. A lot of information that we took away to be able to summarize, and I think that Paul's actually going to kind of share with you some of the takeaways from that time together.
Right. So the foundation of our plan here is really what we all believe it's right for all students and what the building should have. And this list here really captures all of the rich conversation we had, but really a guiding light statement for us as we step into this process is that all buildings need to be healthy and, critically important, safe, but qualifying it that it doesn't need to be at the expense of beauty and the ability to feel like you're at home, at school, in some place that isn't like a prison cell. Promoting rich experiences and joy among your students was expressed by leadership at all the schools, as well as the entire committee. And that schools be designed in a way to foster and facilitate student choice and agency, that they can actually seize control and not just be along for a ride, but actually be active leaders of their own education. There's a strong universal thought towards embracing the beautiful nature that surrounds your buildings. I mean, you are in one of those beautiful places in the country, and you could be in some of your existing buildings and not even know it, with the lack of windows that can be brought forward in a new, refreshed design of facilities. And then finally, that it's critically important that the schools be connected to the community. So next steps in this process, going back to our timeline here, next Monday, we kick off our community forums. The first one happens Monday night, and we will leave open a survey. It'll be launched at that time, and it'll be left open for about a week so that we can solicit input and be able to get some more qualitative data that can be brought in with all the hard data we have about enrollment in buildings to be able to form draft options. We will come back to you on the 26th of October and share with you before they are presented to the community in community forum number 2. And we'll share with you what those draft options are. Meet with the community, have another survey that's open, and then, Merry Christmas. We're going to join you in what I just heard earlier was your only school committee meeting in December, and it'll be probably a packed agenda, but at that point we look forward to rendering our recommendations. And with that, we'd love to entertain any questions you might have.
Questions, anyone?
Will this PowerPoint be available to us online, these slides?
Yep, I can definitely share that. Tomorrow.
Good, thank you.
I have a question, but I'm trying to frame it. I'm trying to frame this question so that everyone understands what I'm trying to ask. So I don't know how many years ago, Brian, you may know, when we renovated this school and added on for a very large amount of children. I don't want to go too low in our predictions of lowering the enrollment across our towns. So I'm trying to figure out where are you getting the data? Because I feel it was over projected by quite a large amount. 15 years? How long ago? Do you know? I'm looking at Brian because him and I have been through this for a long time.
Are you talking,
There's a plaque out front, isn't it? 95 or something?
yeah,
Okay,
much more than
28
15
years.
years ago.
okay.
Jordan, do you want me to address the question?
Okay.
Maybe-
So I don't know
Yeah,
who
the-
from Canon would,
I'm thinking the plaque might say 2002.
that's what I thought was in the 2000s.
I have to walk by it every day, but I'm
No,
probably also wrong.
It's definitely in the 1990s.
Yeah, okay,
Of course, it
Um,
was in stages, so.
right. Anyways, we're all adding to this, so I don't know if it's Paul or who has data that they're looking at.
Jordan, I'll take the first stab and you can round it out. But we've requested a lot of data of the school system about the facilities, all the drawings of the buildings, and included among that is the enrollment projections. And we are not just taking it at face value and moving forward, we're also checking and looking at the methodologies underpinning the data. We do this around the country a lot, so we can spot check this and usually spot any sort of bogeys that might be coming down the way. Now, it's not a perfect science. This is predicting the future, which, if you're a weatherman, I don't know if any other jobs that you can be right 30% of the time and you're doing a good job. Well, demographers kind of fit in the same category. But our pledge to you is to plan for a flexible future in which any sort of growth or decline can be accommodated in the plan. And that moving forward, were this to lead towards any significant capital projects that would have participation from the MSBA, there will be check-ins along through that planning and design process to implement that project, in which that would be looked at very closely to make sure that state's resources and your local resources are expended in the most responsible way.
Thank you.
And I have to say, having participated in the first meeting in August, I was very impressed with the focus on not just what the condition of the building is and what needs attention, but really thinking about the vision for the what kind of building we want kids to walk into or want our staff to walk into, and that there are ways to use, it doesn't mean tearing down this building and building a new building. And there are so many ways that the current existing space can be modified with not a huge price tag that will make it more functional and make it more modern and take advantage of the things that we have existing, things that we have to offer. So I'm pretty excited. Great. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much, Paul. Do you have anything more to add?
You've got it. This one's short and sweet to let you know what's coming down the pike, and we look forward to joining you again in a little over a month and sharing with you the draft options that we put together.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
All right. So moving on to our new administrator entry plans. Jordan, do you want to?
Yeah, I would love to introduce this. I'll keep the introduction short because we have a super articulate team that I'm sure everyone will enjoy hearing from more than me. But they've been putting in a ton of hard work in creating these entry plans, and this evening they're each going to talk about different parts of their respective entry plans, and you'll kind of get the whole what the entry plan looks like. But each person's going to talk about a different portion of the entry plan and the process of doing it. So maybe all four of you, can you come up to the table? Is there room? Is that fine? Might have to do like a...
Oh.
And I was thinking maybe Kate would kick it off. I've made a batting order.
You made the best. Your walk-up song.
I've got Nancy batting cleanup. I'm gonna be honest. So we got Kate, then Chrissy, then Matt, and Nancy batting cleanup. So I'm confident with this lineup. So please go ahead.
Good ball.
Nothing like starting with a sports metaphor. This is great. Good evening. How are everybody?
Good evening. Good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you. I was asked to just briefly give you a sense of why Patricia asked us to write entry plans, what those entry plans involve, what we're hoping to achieve in the creation of those entry plans, and then my colleagues will talk about each of the separate portions. So the primary reason for this is it really is best practice for us to do this work. Right. We are all new administrators. We, not necessarily in terms of, at least to this district, we need to acclimate ourselves to the new district. We need to build, at least begin to build trust, not only among our team, but with all of the stakeholders in the community. It also enables us as leaders in your district to develop goals and to create an actual action plan to move forward. And it asks us to really look at and gather the data that enables us to make those decisions and take those actions. So throughout the process, we will do a lot of listening, we will learn, we will do our best to identify opportunities and to look at challenges that we are perceiving. We'll continuously check our understanding by conferring with all kinds of people, having lots of conversations. We're going to need to create goals, right? A strategy. We're going to need to write an action plan. So each of the plans that's in your packet has a short introduction for each of our roles. There are goals, and you'll notice that sometimes the goals are quite similar, because I think that actually makes a lot of sense given what it is that we're trying to do. There will be topics for review. There's a timeline, there's action steps, there's a list of documents for review, and then ultimately there will be, once we're finished with the process, findings and the implications of those findings. And again, each of us probably deals with almost everything in this list I'm going to read, but some of us are focused more on some of the topics, and some of us are focused slightly less. So the list includes everything from curriculum instruction and assessment, which of course are near and dear to my heart, but you also have intervention special education, professional development, social emotional learning, everything from state mandates to technology to educational evaluation and mentoring, the early childhood program, family engagement, inclusion, equity, and cultural proficiencies. So that's my short version of that list of things. And so each of us has a responsibility now to talk to you, and I actually don't remember, Jordan, which direction we were going to go, who was taking goals.
Right, you did great. Process, so you nailed it.
Thanks, Jordan.
Yep. And Chrissy was going to talk about all the documentation she's gathering as part of her
Excellent.
process.
So I'll introduce Chrissy Schreiber, the principal of Northfield Elementary School, and give her the microphone. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. So we all have, depending on our role, different documents that we will be looking at, but there are a lot that will be very similar. So I'll give you my list, but you also have them in front of you. But looking at what is the curriculum that we're using. So in the elementary school, what are the curriculums that are not just our teachers are using, but what are we using for interventions? What are we using for assessments and things like that? District improvement plan, and then also looking at school improvement plans from the past so that we can inform and make decisions for the future. Building and land plans, especially at NES, there's a presentation at the library next Wednesday, if you would like to know. I went the wrong day. I had it on my calendar for yesterday. MCAS data and local assessment data, so looking at our data team meetings with our teachers, but also kind of looking globally and looking at a history. Faculty and staff evaluations, where do we need to support our teachers? Professional development from the past and a plan for the future for this year, school committee and district policies, special education files, so looking at what are our needs of our students, looking at 504 files, so looking at different accommodations that are necessary, making plans for that, looking at the various handbooks for staff, for students, for families, contracts, what is the language in them. That's something that I think is really important for us to know. Past town reports for our various towns to know what's important for our communities. So, and also looking at like district accommodation plans, so DCAP.
Matt's next up, discussing some of the stakeholders you're going to talk to and what type of questions.
So Matt Sullivan.
I respectfully ask for your seat.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk to Waller.
I need music. We're playing music.
Yeah.
It was a seamless transition. So again, thanks for having us here today to talk about our entry plans. I'm going to talk briefly about the different parties that we're going to be interviewing and having conversations with. An enormous part of this is the data that Chrissy just shared, but another co-equal part to this is having human conversations face-to-face with people that are vested stakeholders, whether they be teachers, families, students, members of the community. And we have to make sure that we listen to all of these voices. The decisions that we're going to be making are going to be impacting the future of our schools and the educational outcomes of our children. So it is extremely important that we have a very wide array of conversations with various people throughout the community and different stakeholders. The process also is important in the sense too that as a leader of any institution, there's a temptation to act, like a compulsion. Like I need to act. I need to do something. There's things happening. I need to make a decision right now, and that's a natural reaction, but also probably a poor one. I can speak for myself coming into this building, into this district. I certainly have experience and I understand how schools work, but I also am new to this community, and it's a really, really essential thing to listen to what people have to say. So the conversations that we're going to be having related to this entry plan are going to be centered around a list of questions. I won't bore you by reading the questions that you have in front of you, but they're designed to spur like a natural conversation about what's working in our schools, what's not, what do we need to see, what have we had in the past that we need to bring back, what are some new things that we really have to focus on. And going into these conversations, it's also important for all of us to have, really to leave our assumptions at the door. Have, conversations where we value honesty and candor, and let the narrative be created by these conversations rather than have it, try and fulfill what we already, our preconceived notions. So the conversational part of this is very, very important. I'll be reaching out to a lot of people, including many of you fine folks, to share your thoughts. And I think that is going to be, at least in my view, I would argue strongly, like the most important part of this process for me, to hear what people have to say. Ultimately, schools are successful if they reflect the values of the community, and I think all of our intentions are to ensure that our entry plans are reflective not just of the data and the needs of the school, but also of the hopes and dreams and desires of the member communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now leave you to our cleanup hitter.
Bring it home.
I promise I won't do the echo effect of like a stadium here, but please give a warm welcome to Nancy, our cleanup hitter.
Nice.
So I'm Nancy Parlacloche, and I'm the Student Services Director. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the goals that I have on my entry plan. So as Chrissy and Matt talked about, the goals that I have are follow the document search and the interviews and all of those things. That's what these goals are based on. So after going through interviews and looking at, you know, all the data that's available to us, the goal is to build connections grounded in trust with students, families, administrative colleagues, and the broader community. And already through my interactions with folks, just very informally meeting people, going into buildings, attending IEP meetings, people stopping by my office, we're starting to make connections, and I'm starting to hear concerns or things people are really excited about. And so all of that I'm just trying to take in. Like Matt said, I'm trying to keep an open mind and just take in the information. Through the documents, my second goal is to learn the history and the practices and resources of the district and their effect on how the organization currently functions. And again, my lens is primarily on student services and special education, and there's a lot of processes and procedures, pre-referral steps that schools need to take before kids are referred to special education, all kinds of systems. So I'm trying to get my arms around how healthy those systems are and how we can improve them. I am also, one of my goals is to establish myself as a interested and listener and a supportive and effective leader. So I think it's important for folks to know that I do bring experience and knowledge, but I'm not necessarily the smartest person in the room, that it takes, you know, a back and forth and a collective contribution to come to decisions and to make change. So I don't want people to feel that, again, like Matt said, that I have, you know, this idea of something I'm going to implement without any input or opinions from others. And finally, from all of this, I'm going to identify immediate priorities and areas of focus for longer term goals. So there are going to be things that need immediate attention, and I'm hoping that I'll have consensus and agreement on what those are and how they should be improved. And then there'll be longer term goals about, I can give one example of something I'm thinking about is just, there's a number of one-to-one instructional assistants in the district, and I'm thinking how we could repurpose people so that all the kids are getting their needs met, but they're not, there isn't one person attached to one child all day long. You know, we should have conversations about how we could switch that up. But that wouldn't be something that I would just implement. That's something that would be a long-term conversation, and we'd have to look at the students' needs and the needs in the school. So that's kind of an example of what I imagine one of my longer-term goals would be. Do you have any questions? No?
Thank you. Thank you for going through this process. I actually do have a little bit of a question. How I'm trying to think about how to phrase it too. Have any of you gone through this process before with other previous employment, and also how do you feel this is going to contribute to this year for you, this entry year?
That's an excellent question, and I last went through this process in grad school, for a fictional high school that didn't exist. It was an interesting exercise to that point, but it was strictly academic. So this would be the first time that I've actually gone through this process, which I think is really reflective of the superintendent, but also the team that we put together, and how thorough we want to be, and also the commitment that we're making to the district and over time here. This is not something that's going to be done in a week or a month, and the goals that we establish aren't going to be realized in a month or a year. So I'm really excited about this process and proud to be a part of it, but I think it also speaks really well of our, the synthesis between, the central office, the various schools, the different departments, and people working well together, and not just working well together, but also working well together with like some long-term visions. So that's where, my personal experience has been.
And I just really want to give a shout out to Patricia, because she is a real teacher leader, and she met with us and taught us about this process and supported us through it, and I find it very grounding. I keep kind of coming back to this document to remember, or to inspire me to do something. So I'm finding it really helpful, because I feel if I didn't have this, that I'd be kind of all over the place, that I may not have a good focus or a good foundation. So, but Patricia really led the work, and I did go through this experience in a former district, but I didn't have that education that she provided me, so it's a different experience that I'm having now.
Yes, it is. No, I did not mean that in jest at all. It is incredibly refreshing to work for a superintendent who's knowledgeable and is engaged and is experienced and thoughtful and clearly has a significant skill set that she's able to bring to the table. That's a new experience for me. I've worked for several different superintendents, and their skill sets, as you might imagine, really vary, and their dedication and experience really varies. So it's a kind of a refreshing experience. Nancy and I came from the same district, so we often look at each other and go, "This is different," But we mean that in a really positive way. It's kind of a joyful experience for us to have an administrative team that actually works well together, that we share goals, that we have respect for the person who's ultimately charged with making some really challenging and difficult decisions. And it's going to be a really integral part of, Nancy and I are quite involved in the DESE review, which is coming our way. They're focusing a lot on curriculum assessment, instruction, and student support. And we were working on that document over the last few days and recognizing that a lot of what we're doing for this entry plan is going to kind of nicely coordinate with what is being asked of us in terms of producing information for the state and the group of people who are coming actually at the state's behest to make observations and recommendations for this particular community. So I have to admit, it was a little slightly daunting at first, right? Slightly daunting. But again, when you have a really great teacher and that teacher breaks things down in steps and tells you that this process is leading to a particular place, it makes it that much easier. And then once you get engaged in it and you're excited about the work, it doesn't really seem like work. So that's kind of a nice thing for all of us. At least I'm going to speak with the royal we just for a second, but it's certainly a nice process for me.
And I'd like to thank all of you for going through the process, and it must have been a lot of work. You're coming to a new community, new faces, you're trying to get acclimated to everything. But for me, this is great. I mean, I love goal setting myself. In my career, it's always been goal setting, not quite what I'm doing right now. But I just think these documents are wonderful. So I wanted to welcome you and thank you for putting this on paper and being here tonight.
I'll just say thank you because, and ditto to what everything that they've said. I think this has been, it was scary at first to think about the amount of work it still is to think about trying to fit it in with the day-to-day that you have to do in a school. But I find that a lot of the things that I need to be doing are in the natural conversations that I'm already having with students, with parents, with our PTO, that I may not be writing down my notes right away in the middle of those conversations, but I'm having those conversations and they're informing this. And so I think even though it felt daunting at the beginning, I think it will really inform us as we are later reviewing and writing school improvement plans and how I interact with my teachers to understand the history of that they have. It helps me so that we can have a better relationship and I know where they need to go and where they need support. So this is, even though scary at first, is really helpful.
Yeah, this was clearly a lot of work went into these, and that was clear in reading them, and I appreciate that work, and I'm glad to hear that it really is helping you to focus in on getting started in our district, and we look forward to hearing from you in January with the updates. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
And I know everybody said very nice stuff about Patricia, which is very accurate, but I know she also feels very strongly that she has a great team, and all of you have been great professional additions for her and for me as well to work with. So great things in our future.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Right. And you're welcome. You're all welcome to stay till the end, but you're also welcome.
No pressure.
If you so choose. Great. So on to our next agenda item, the approval of swipe card access. Take it away, Jordan.
Oh, all right. So, yeah, so this is the kind of the next contract in the process of the Safer Communities grant that we received. We discussed the window film contracts previously, and this is for to have key card access for all the buildings. You know, PVRS has a system, but it's antiquated, hard to update, and relies on you know, one of the oldest computers in Franklin County. So that's not good. So it's a wonderful opportunity to use this grant funding to update that, make the system, you know, have a system that's more flexible, provide some more functionality. You know, so you never want to think of, oh, you know, vandalism or this or that happens, but it's great when you have really accurate records of who is in the building, because it's not just bad things, it's also, you know, about people's safety, knowing who's in the building when, and having a record of that, and so there's benefits too. Overall, we're just trying to make all of our buildings safer. We have a great community. We're super lucky that generally it's super safe, but we also want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make the buildings even safer. And what a great opportunity. We have over $140,000, and this is the next step in that process is upgrading the key card access and having more doors that have that key card functionality. You know, rather than, you know, everybody knows keys can, 20 years ago I worked here, and, you know, you still have a key, right? That happens all the time. Right? Like, there you go. We need that back at the end of the meeting.
Oh, not from here.
No, I'm joking. That was a joke.
I've never worked here.
But we want to, you know, obviously the key card system's a lot easier, right? You just discontinue someone's access when they resign or retire or whatever, and it's much simpler to know who still has access, and also, you know, the process of providing law enforcement with access in case that, you know, there's some need there. That's a lot easier with the key cards. So we see a ton of benefit. Gretchen has done wonderfully to vet some vendors for us, get references, and we'd like to move forward with the contracts as presented. Any questions?
Go ahead, Karen.
Of course.
Right. I note at the bottom of your memo, you say what amount will be remaining and what it will be used for. It seems to me, looking at the cost of window film for the other buildings, oh, that's already budgeted in, right?
Yep.
So the rest is really just for the security cameras?
And some window film here. There's more, there
to be
was
done.
more here already. And what we're considering potentially other window options, including shades. We're trying to speak with local law enforcement and state and county law enforcement to make sure we choose carefully. But yeah, a lot of it is going to ultimately be cameras, and that's the part of the reason that's last on the priority list. Is I think that additional conversations need to be had,
Right.
with school committee, in fact,
Yeah.
about placement of cameras, et
Right.
cetera, and priorities,
Yep.
and both safety, but also where we want cameras, where we think is appropriate.
And I know you always could do more, but, and I'm sure you are prioritizing and thinking about what gives you the most effect for what, in case you run out of funds for everything you really would like to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And a lot of it, we're just taking our cue again from law enforcement partners. At the end of August, we did every single building with local, county, and state law enforcement to look at all the buildings and say, okay. And some of the stuff isn't expensive.
Yeah.
We talked to them about the grant and that informed the application for the grant, but we also circled back and toured every building. Me and Gretchen and the principals were involved, and so we're always prioritizing how to make the building safer.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question about the work will be done from 7 during business hours, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. So some of that work will may be done while students are in the building. Is that?
Yeah, I think that it's possible. Yes, but the swipe card stuff is mostly electrical, right? There's the hardware, and then it's just wiring work, really. So it's not super invasive.
Okay, all right. And I'm also just in terms of Corey checks and
Yeah.
whatnot. So I assume that'll be happening.
Yep.
So great, perfect. Yes. Oh yes. Go ahead, Melissa.
I just have two sort of curious questions. One, at any point, do you see that this key card access will be eventually used as a system that will monitor the staff entering and exiting for timeliness to work?
That's not the priority.
I understand.
Yeah.
I was just thinking
Yeah.
about that from someone that used to work in a locked building that swiped their card, if this is sort of a progressional tool that we're putting in place. So I was wondering if that was on the agenda or at some point down the road. I understand it's not our main factor, and safety is definitely the main concern. And then the other curious thing that I had is, I know a lot of our recreation departments use our school buildings, and so I'm curious how using these swipe cards will impact all of the great work that's done by all of our recreational departments that use the school after hours, and if there'll be any impact there.
Yeah, I think that probably mostly it'll be a positive impact, because I think that, we'll be able to ensure the buildings are in better shape and safer, because we'll be able to limit access to people who are authorized users, which I think is great for the rec departments. And I think we also can probably, my understanding with the more modern systems is you can have something like, okay, you have access from 8 to noon on Saturday. And so I think that can make it more convenient, because if they don't need to meet somebody there or different things, they'll know they have access. It's limited. So but 100% agreed. Our rec departments do so much positive work. We want to only help them, not in any way.
Right, to continue that
Yeah.
work is what I was curious about.
Yep.
Great. Any other questions? Wonderful. So,
So I will make a motion
Yep.
to approve the key card access contracts at Bernardston Elementary School, Northfield Elementary School, and Pioneer Valley Regional School as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, let's go ahead and vote.
Sylvia Cummings, yes.
Melissa Gary, yes.
Michelle Druso, yes.
Karen O'Neill, yes.
Gretchen Kelton, yes.
Steve Martin, yes. Thanks for all of this.
Thanks. And Raina Dastu, yes, so that passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. All right, so moving on to our job description, approval of the district resource nurse position.
Yep. A little background. I know there's a great memo. So we've had a little bit of staff movement in the health services nursing. Our former NES nurse, Jacinta Hunting, is now our a district nurse leader, so that's wonderful. I know she is doing and will do a great job. So we're very lucky there. And this job description is, I think we have identified a wonderful candidate that can fill this role. And this job description is just making it possible so that creating a new position of district resource nurse that could be filled by an LPN under the supervision of an RN. I know we have so many more knowledgeable people about this field than me, so I'm sure there may be very good appropriate questions. But any questions regarding this job description?
So my understanding is that so if this district resource nurse is an LPN and needs a supervising RN, would be the district nurse leader?
Yep.
Correct. Thank you. Just clarifying that. Any other questions? All right. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move that we accept this job description for district resource nurse as written.
I'll second.
Great. Any further discussion?
Melissa Gary, yes.
Michelle Druso, yes.
Karen O'Neill, yes.
Sylvia Cummings, yes.
Gretchen Kelton, yes.
Stephen Martin, yes.
And Raina Dastu, yes, so that passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Excellent. Enrollment data.
Wonderful. I can't wait till Patricia's back and can do a much better job at these, but I'm going to do my best as a stand-in. But we will all appreciate Patricia even more after my presentation. So enrollment. So I think the most accurate comparison actually isn't the July to September, because July is kind of a strange time to take a census. Hopefully we'd never get so much snow that we are in school in July. I know, I apologize, Renee, for even bringing that thought up. But June, I think, is probably the more accurate representation of where we ended the year, right? And so I think that anyone would notice, okay, there used to be 676 students, and now there's 620, and that's a lot less. But I think that we all know, obviously, Warwick starting their own school district hugely impacts those numbers, because if you dig a little deeper, and I know it's not presented here, but when I looked at the June numbers in comparison to the September numbers, the difference in 56 students, well, 41 of that is because of Warwick's departure and just organic, right? Someone moved one town over. But 41 of those students were at the elementary level. So the biggest impact is that Warwick impact. It's not 56 students suddenly disappeared. They're just being educated up at Warwick is most of the story. And then there's a little bit of a story in the high school, right? Because students chose between 8th and 9th grade to either attend the tech school or attend some of our local charter and private schools. But importantly, that number and the share of the students that chose that route in comparison to FY23 is lower. So the number, I believe, was 65% of the students in FY23 chose to attend 9th grade and above elsewhere, whereas 55% in FY24 made that choice. So in terms of outward migration, it's a smaller share. Of course, we always hope to maintain as many of those students as possible. At the same time, for some of those students, that just may be the right choice for them. So it's, tech school is a wonderful option as well. But in some more heartening data, I think, is that we now have 21 students attending the district from Vernon, and at the end of FY23, we only had 11. So we have a net gain of 10 students from the town of Vernon. That's positive. We still have 17 Warwick students attending, 2 at NES and 15 at the middle high school. Obviously, very healthy choice numbers as well, having 50 students attending the district. So there's a lot of stuff going on in these numbers, but I think that obviously the Warwick being the big story in terms of outward movement, but we clearly are attractive to different categories of students as well. So there's some positive stuff for sure.
Go ahead, Karen.
Do you have any information on why so many seniors are going?
The -7 is it's really just the organic. The 11th grade is 7 smaller than the graduating 12th grade. So it's not that they left, it's just that 48 students graduated and they're replaced by 41. And that's
So we're not following the same class.
right, because now they're gone. And so that's really the story of the high school. When you see -21 for 10th grade,
Right.
it's that our
Right.
9th grade was tiny, and now it replaced a 38 student 10th grade. So it's -21 because the 10th grade used to be. So that's really the story in the high school is we have this bubble, right, of a 17 student 9th, now 10th grade, but it's also an opportunity, right? If the demographics and trends change, we have an opportunity over the next few years to potentially grow, right? If that 17 is replaced eventually by a 40, well, now we're going to have 23 more students in the high school. So it's something to think about in terms of long-term planning and staffing and everything else is this may be a temporary bubble that moves through the 9 through 12, and there's bigger numbers to come.
Great.
All right. There is no other business. Personnel update?
Yes. Right, so personnel update. I think as we all know, we have a ton of great staff in the district. We're super lucky in that respect. But, in the kind of strength building on strength, we have hired some outstanding people as well. And I can only imagine how great they're going to be at the end of the year after interacting and sometimes being mentored by our existing staff. So there are still a small amount of openings, but and I know people who are parents in the district probably are already. I'm not making this up. I've spoken to parents and they've talked about some of the new teachers and talked about some really positive interactions their children have already had. So that's always heartening to hear, right? Because people do great and you meet them and you think they're going to be great, and then to hear, yes, they're doing wonderfully, that's very positive to hear with the ultimate end user, our students. So there's still some openings, and I think another shout out, and it's too bad Claire's not here because we talked a few weeks ago about how, we had some math openings, and then we were super creative with staffing, and thanks to the PVREA and being willing to make creative solutions, and many of our existing staff are now teaching math. And Claire said at that meeting, I claim to read her mind. She said I didn't. That we could come to this type of creative solution where our existing great educators teach some math, and all reports are that that's going really well. We have this really well functioning math department with long-term educators working to strengthen our math education and create great experiences for our students. So that helped us have less openings. Our existing teachers, who some of which were already certified in math, picked up some additional math classes. So we've been creative. We've identified great candidates. We've landed great candidates. And some of these that are still listed as openings were very close to the goal line with candidates. Almost every position has a candidate identified. It's just we aren't to the signing papers part yet with some people, so we didn't want to put that in as completely done. So compared to the last meeting, we have made huge progress, and we're super lucky to be adding additional great staff to the already wonderful staff we have.
I just have to say, I'm really sad that so many good people at the high school are going. This just hit me like a ton of bricks when I read this day before yesterday. And I know as a committee we have wrestled with the idea of exit interviews to try to understand why people leave and go maybe somewhere else or maybe end up not teaching. And we've gotten advice from council that we really can't proceed with exit interviews as a school committee. But I think we were reminded at that time that we could, if we wanted to know more, contact individuals. And upon speaking with Claire today, she said that if anybody wants to do that, she thinks she can provide telephone numbers so you could call to find out what it was that prompted someone to leave.
I'd like to do that.
What?
I would like to do that.
Could we, before we give out personnel information,
Yes.
can we please make sure that staff is okay with that?
Absolutely.
I don't feel
Yes,
comfortable.
I think that was part of what she
I mean,
was
I was
offering.
mailed an exit interview to my home address a couple weeks ago from an employee who's left the district. They reached out to me.
Right.
Completely appropriate.
Right.
But for me to gain access to people's personal information given by the school district that they left, I think I'd be really concerned at how that was portrayed or given. And if we do, what do we do with that information?
I think
Because we
that's
need to
a
really
personal thing.
Because we need to consider so many variables. So
I think it's really important to consider how the information is obtained. Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
But I definitely think it's important for us to get an idea of why all of these individuals are leaving, just to kind of get a better access and pool the information and see what we can come up with to prevent further individuals from leaving. We really want to build a program. Like I even really would love to check in with the math department to make sure that they're being supported in the ways that they need as the school year progresses. There's going to be things that come up that will need to be addressed, might need to be tweaked a little bit. So we want to continuously check in with these teachers that are doing more, also make sure we're supporting them.
That's definitely the responsibility of the administration.
Oh,
So
no,
we need to ask
absolutely.
them,
No. Just making sure
for-
that's
to be-
done. But I think it's important for us to absolutely check in with the folks that have left.
Renee
So,
had her hand.
Renee, yes.
Excuse me. So I just wanted to do a couple things, offer some historical perspective on Ms. O'Neill's comments about the bravery that was elicited by the school committee in previous times. I'd like to mention Sue O'Reilly McCrae, who worked tirelessly the last time that exit interviews were put into place, along with Jess from Warwick. And it was against the advice of council, which the council gives advice. They are advisors. And the school committee bravely went forward with the decision to have exit interviews for this similar purpose. So I just wanted to offer a historical perspective that
Right.
that has been the advice of council.
Mhm.
However, the school committee can act as their own agent in that regard. And I just want to also add that I was surprised recently when we were processing paperwork that there were 18 professional resignations this past session. That doesn't even go back to the spring. That's just the summer resignations, so district-wide. That was surprising to me as well. And I do find myself wanting to be a learner and not a knower, and use the information as we move forward, as our administrators that were here mentioning, learning from where we were and where we want to be and setting goals, all feels like very important information. I think those are my only comments. I appreciate the work that you all do. I just wanted to give you some reminders of historically decisions that have been made by this body.
Yeah.
And
Excuse me, this
one
is,
more thing,
Steve.
sorry. The math
sorry.
teachers also were those who decided to help with the math, are, as they always do, are student forward facing and really want to support the students who choose Pioneer, give them what we can give them, and always have their best interests and their family's best interests at heart. So yes, they got on board and they work as directed, and they are helping out.
Steve, did you have something to say?
Yes, I'm so sorry. Just thank you very much. I wish I could raise my hand virtually, but I just did want to echo very much other colleagues and folks there in advocating for the school committee having a method for exit interviews, however they're conceived or devised, that takes into account privacy, but also our fiduciary mandate, which is to understand the health and longevity and sustainability of the district, and that starts with teachers. And I would ask if it's possible to please put this on the agenda for our next meeting so that we could have a more concrete discussion about what this can look like.
I agree, 100%. A lot to be
Yeah, I
learned.
can take that up with the superintendent. Our next meeting might not be the best forum, but we can look.
Sure, but sometime soon. Yes, please.
I won't
Thank you.
be here next meeting, so that's,
Yeah.
yes.
This is not really relevant to the number of teachers that left this district, but I've been following some news trends, and it's not just this district.
Certainly not.
And I have grandchildren in the Mohawk district that don't have a math teacher right now. They're learning from books, and they're be giving packets of information there in the 9th grade, and they don't have a teacher at all. So I think it's pretty remarkable what the Pioneer team has done in terms of filling a void in the math department. And I know that there's a list of people still to be filled, but it speaks volumes to the teaching staff here.
Go ahead, Melissa.
I brought up at a separate meeting the list of the staff that I had a lot of concerns. I'm hoping that after the presentation also of the administrators, that they're going to be reaching out. I was happy to see that culture is part of their process. I'm hoping that when they report, they're also candid with their reports to us. I'm hoping that the teachers that they do interview are candid also with their administrators. So I would really like to put the exit interviews back on the table.
Yes.
I would really caution anyone at this point, though, to reaching out individually to people. That is not our role as a school committee member. And I think the privacy of our staff who have chosen to leave should be in the utmost respect. If they would like to reach out to us, there are avenues and there are friends that they still have in this building. They're friends with union representation. They know them. The message can get out there that we can receive messages. But there is also some pretty clear expectations of what our role is as a school committee member. I want the data. I'm concerned about the culture hugely. But how we obtain that data is really important and ethical.
And it needs to be organized.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Organized.
Right.
Absolutely. We cannot have people reaching, I mean,
So I'm just going to say, I would not be comfortable with any member of the school committee reaching out to any staff member and asking for phone numbers of anyone who's left. So I think that we need to, it is important for us to send the message that they can reach out to us if anyone, any staff member knows a staff member who has left, and please tell them we invite them to reach out to us.
Yes.
Any of us, by email, phones, if you're comfortable giving out, if members are comfortable giving out their phone number, I think it wouldn't be appropriate for us to make that,
I agree, but I want to ask a question of this committee. I was mentor to one of the teachers who left here. We've maintained a friendship. I haven't heard from her, but I sure would like to know.
I think you have for someone you have a personal relationship with, but
it's not something I would share with other people.
But
either.
I think it depends on the
different.
hat that you're wearing many hats.
Yeah.
You're wearing many hats, and so you can't. I guess it would be for. I don't know. I mean, I could contact many of.
I know, but
that.
this, I worked with her for a year.
Yeah.
One-on-one, and I'm just wondering too.
And we're all going to do what we're going to do.
Yeah. I'm just wondering what is being done for the people who currently don't have a biology teacher or a world language teacher. What are they doing? Kind of paralleling what's happening with in Mohawk with the math.
Yep, there's, there are very few, for biology, for example, so our environmental educator is teaching the environmental science courses. So there are anatomy and physiology classes. An anatomy and physiology class, maybe there's 2 sections of it that doesn't have someone, but the majority of all the science classes are covered.
So they're just, waiting?
They are.
Okay.
And I don't think that, the students are waiting, but people are not sitting passively, the administration's reaching out every day, trying to identify teachers. They could be potential replacements. So I do think that, potentially exit interviews could be illuminating if done correctly, and I would want to know what those best practices are, because I think there's, of people who left, statistically, there's a pretty big bias in the responses that you're going to get, right? If you call customers who have self-identified as having a bad experience, you're going to get a perspective about a company or a school, but it may not be the whole story. I mean, equally, I think we need to also do entry interviews. We have a lot of extremely experienced teachers who came to us from other districts. So I think that equally, I would want to balance those scales carefully. And so I think that that's an important thing. We need to look at both sides of the equation, because we have a lot of people with 15 years of experience, for example, who, because probably for a lot of reasons, but also very positive things about the district, chose the district. I completely hear what you're saying, Karen, about having potentially students not having a teacher right now. The timing of some of these things is not our friend, right? When resignations come on August 25th, most people already have a dance partner. And especially the caliber of teacher that we want for our students. And so it takes a little more time to often develop relationships at this time of the year, and because there aren't many free agents, as it were, you really need to start looking about developing relationships, trying some non-traditional routes to try to find educators at this time of year. So I think that, and it is a industry-wide issue, right? Having essentially, in terms of teachers, a position in 1.4 positions, we're in pretty good shape, right? That's it's not ideal. We need to do even better. However, there are districts with many more openings.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. So updates. So the community forum for our district master plan, our facilities master plan, is Monday, September 18th, 5:30 to 7:30. And Jordan, do you know the location for that?
Yes, the high school cafeteria, middle high school, PVRS cafeteria.
So in this building, in the cafeteria, yes.
How is that being publicized so that people are aware? Because this is an open forum, is that correct? Or is this just for the people that have volunteered?
It is an open forum. Mm-hmm.
I want to, so many ways.
District
Right, Tricia sent a district update. I personally reached out to everybody, the different towns, select boards, finance committees, and we have asked the towns to also post on their respective websites. So as many ways as we can think, and yeah. And tonight, we just announced
And
it.
tonight, yes, that's
Right, and we announced it. And so one of the things that I think about even attending these meetings is how we get it out to people, and what we consider the certain number or percentage of people that come, that we then count that we've had a successful reach out to get really good public comment and public opinion. You all do incredible work. I don't dissuade or discount any of that work. I think as a person, that's why I go to things, because I want to learn, and I know everyone doesn't have that same mindset. I'm curious, if we take a step back, what your thought is, if you had one, about the percentage of people you feel you would have to reach in all the communities to feel that you had a really good representation of their opinions. I'm not saying you have to get one, but I would have that feeling and curiosity of how many people are coming that I really felt like the opinions that I've gathered are a true representation of my community. Just a thought.
Well, I would like to say all communities are struggling. You know, I'm working for the town of Leiden, and participation is just difficult all the way around, you know, and we're struggling with the same kinds of issues, you know. We have a wonderful newsletter that comes out monthly. We have a website. We do emails, and when we have things happening, we just don't know where their participation, how come people aren't participating? I think people are so busy in their everyday lives that it doesn't matter if you have something in the evening or on a weekend. They're just so busy.
Yeah, I'm not discounting the work or the effort that's put into it by any means. I just, are we comfortable with the, we have to make some really tough decisions in a lot of areas of our lives based on very limited input.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that the survey that he was speaking of will reach a lot more people that will participate than actual showing up on a Monday with everything else. So I think having that percentage is important to think about. I've always thought about that with other entities that try to solicit information. Like, where are you getting this information from? So I'm hoping that as we're soliciting information, and it sounded like Canon Design's doing a great job, that they're doing it both ways, in person and virtually through submission. And I think it also helps that we use our own villages and we use our own connections and community. So I think we all have that responsibility to share.
I think one other thing is, we're specifically inviting a lot of elected people. So, in terms of representative democracy, right, each one of those people carry a ton of support within the towns, right? And I think that they speak for a wide variety of people because they were elected to their roles. So if we're not going to get every member of every town, but I think that if we have a lot of elected people, whether it be it school committee, select board, or appointees in the different towns, I think, ultimately we probably have a pretty good idea of what those communities feel, and so that's why we've also made special reach outs to the towns and because we think that those people, have a really good pulse on how their constituents feel.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so our next meeting is Thursday, September 28th, 6 p.m. here. And so our next agenda item is to go into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Teachers Association and support personnel if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, which I do. We will be returning to open session to vote on some MOAs.
I'll move.
Thank you.
The executive session.
Okay.
Oh,
Yep.
Sylvia Cummings, yes.
Melissa Gary, yes.
Michelle DeRusso, yes.
Karen O'Neill.
Stephen Martin.
Yes.
Oh,
Gretchen
Karen,
Carlton, yes. Yep. Great. And Raina Dastu, yes. All right. So we will adjourn to our executive session. I will, yeah, I have to mute. Oh. Can I unmute? Oh, it says I can't unmute someone else for some reason.
Just as long as your mic is, or the people in the room are muted.
Oh, yes, yes, I know. I'm like, just as I was walking by the speaker, I was like, woo. Yeah.
We are back on.
Okay, great. So welcome back. So I will entertain a motion for
Okay.
any of these MOAs. Just want to go down the list.
I move that we accept the MOA with the PVREA about licensure expenses.
Second.
Thank you. All right. Any discussion? I'd say no. Go ahead.
Sylvia Cummings, yes.
Melissa Gary, yes.
Michelle Druso, yes.
Karen O'Neill, yes.
Gretchen Kelton, yes.
Oh, and it looks like Steve has left the
Oh,
meeting, so Raina Dastu, yes. So that passes.
so we could do this.
Yep.
and-
Oh,
Next
yes, we
ones.
can.
Yep.
All right. So motion for the MOA with regarding therapy dog handler.
I move that we accept the MOA with the PVREA for the therapy dog handler.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right. All in favor? Aye. That's unanimous. Oh, Steve's back. We got away with one. All right. And our next MOA, entertain.
I would like to move that we approve and move forward with the MOA for PVREA educator evaluation dates.
Second.
Thank you. All right. So go ahead and start the voting.
Sylvia Cummings, yes.
Melissa Gary, yes.
Michelle Druso, yes.
Karen O'Neill, yes.
Gretchen Kelton, yes.
Steve? Oh.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't see him. All right. And Raina Dastu, yes. So I'm not sure that Steve can hear us. All right. Anyway, so that passes. Oh, yeah, he just left again. Okay. And the final MOA? Someone like to move that one?
I'll move the MOA with PVASP for the transportation coordinator stipend.
Second.
Sylvia Cummings, yes.
Melissa Gary, yes.
Michelle Druso, yes.
Karen O'Neill, yes.
Gretchen Kelton, yes.
And Raina Dastu, yes. All right. That is it. That concludes our meeting, I believe. We have a motion
I'll
to
make a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
Second. All right.
All in favor?
All in
if we're all
favor?
here?
Aye. All right. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone. And
Good
wow,
evening.
7:58. Good job, everybody.